Today on my channel, Planner Friends, well, I finished this faith study early for the month, and I did show you in a video the first week. I'll link that below, but I'm going to go through the next few weeks in here and explain what I have learned and how you can apply the lessons of Sarah and Hagar to your life, especially if you're dealing with anxiety, anticipatory grief, stress, anticipatory anxiety, etc. So please, this was a really meaningful study this month in here, so much so I was compelled to finish it early, and I'm going to walk you through it. So please stay tuned, friends. Hello, planner friends, and welcome to my channel. I am One Crafty Dolo. On Sundays on my channel, it's all about faith studies, Bible journaling, Jesus, and I always have a good mug of tea by my side. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your valuable time and spending it with me. So welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you this study I've been working in, and I completed the first chapter early. I know this is a week early and then some, but I was so moved, and because I'm honest, I come on this channel and show you what I'm doing in real time. So I'm uploading this, and I bumped another video I had thought for Sunday because I thought, no, I want to show you this because I was so moved by this study. So I'm going to delve into it. Yeah, if you're new, you're welcome to subscribe and tap the notification bell. If you're returning and you're a subscriber, thank you for being here. So I'm going to bring it in a little closer. Woo! Okay. So today what we're going to talk about is this study, and it's Sarah and Hagar. This book is available at Hobby Lobby. It's also available at many libraries now, so you can check it out for yourself. And it even has at the end of each chapter study questions if you want to do those as well in a notebook or however you wish to do it. What I'm doing is I'm using this happy planner, and I'm writing down the verses, and I'm doing the Bible journaling here, and then in the back I have a section where I flesh it out. I already did a video on this lesson here, so I'm going to link that below, and I also explain how I set the planner up. But I want to talk to you a little more about Sarah and Hagar because I wanted to share something that, even though I've looked at this before, this was really revelatory for me in a new way now. And I don't know why that is, other than I'm almost concluded my second full year of Bible studying, and then I have over a year in this is the second study, if you will. And I feel like I've learned so much and grown in my studies and in my creativity. So yeah. So let me share this with you. This is still, we're talking about Sarah. And what I came away with, really the most important point here, is that I related to these women in a very visceral way. And I don't know that I've so deeply related to them. Of course, I'm not them. I didn't live their life. But yet there's something about their humanity that really touched my soul. And that's why I finished this study early for this month, and why I had to come on here and share this today. So let's revisit the story. So Sarah is elderly. Abraham's elderly. God promises them a son. But Sarah doesn't believe. She doesn't trust. She sends her slave to sleep with Abraham. She sends Abraham to sleep with Hagar. And basically what you see here, and I took this from both Genesis 18:10 and 18:15, Sarah is human, just like us, if you will. So in Genesis 18:10, the Lord said, I will surely return to you this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, he's talking to Abraham, shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Tell me that's not a human thing to do. Okay. You want to know what's going on? No, I don't do that now. I don't have any cause to, but there have been times in life where you're like, wait, is that person talking about me with my life? What are they saying? So human. And Genesis 18:12, Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I am worn out, and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure of, in other words, having a child and being a mother. And Genesis 18:14, at the appointed time I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. So God is telling Abraham, hey, I got this. I'm going to do this. And the question becomes, is there anything too hard for the Lord? And the answer is no. So here we go. This is where really, so Sarah denied laughing, okay, is this in Genesis here, 18:15, saying, when she's questioned by God, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. Okay, and that's something the author really brings out here. And God says, no, you did laugh. And I have to say, I don't know about you, but if God is saying, yeah, I saw what you did there, and you're like, no, I didn't. No, but it's such a human moment. And I thought to myself, how many times, I know for me, maybe for you, how many times in your life have you not fully understood or wanted to understand that God was going to fulfill his promises in your life, even if he didn't come to you and say, hey, this is what we're doing, I got you. What you see here is him saying this to Abraham and to Sarah, and she just can't wrap her head around it, so she lies. So Sarah's human just like us. Part of her may want to believe God, but her fear wins out and is reflected in her actions and words. And Abraham was scared too. We go on back a little bit to Genesis 17:19. God said, no, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. So my lesson from all of this, fear is natural, but God's promises endure. Then we come over here, okay, and this is actually the week we are in right now, and as you can see, I've finished it. And basically what we have here is the Genesis 21:1, the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. Who never breaks his promises? God. People do. We're human, but God doesn't. And it goes on further. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. And so her original reaction is reflected in the name Isaac. The Hebrew is Yitzhak, and it means laughter. Think about that for a moment, right? So her laughter, it is now the laughter of joy. And that's really something to wrap your head around, okay? Her son's name is her acknowledgement, this is the author I'm quoting, that not only was God right and she was wrong, but that she too was included in the covenant and that she too was the recipient of promise. And boy, is that pivotal to me, because she's not Abraham, but she is part of this covenant. God doesn't overlook her. God doesn't underestimate her. He tries to say, in fact, the opposite. He's trying to say to her, I've got this, you've got to listen, okay? Apply that to your life. Think about that in terms, I know myself, I have anxiety. Where does my anxiety come from? It's some kind of fear. Well, this was revelatory in many ways to me because I was able to dig deep enough and to say, wait a minute, this is something important that I need to hear. Again, to Genesis 21:10. So she said to Abraham, cast out the slave woman with her son. The son of the slave woman shall not be heir with my Isaac. She becomes again human. All right. We don't hear from Sarah again, but she is in the New Testament. And I think that's important. And she says, by faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive even when she was past the age, since considered him faithful who had promised. And then there's a quote I took that's in the book from Peter, 1 Peter 3:6. And Sarah is mentioned in the New Testament. As Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, and you are her children, if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening. In other words, listen. And I'm saying this loudly for me, not you. Listen, okay? Sometimes I'm a little dense for somebody who's kind of smart. Sometimes I'm not. And so, yeah. And that resonated me. And I'm not going to cry, but I wanted to cry because I thought all my anxiety, and look at this story. And it carried me in ways I don't even know that I can explain to you. But if you're like me and you deal with anxiety, read this. Read these chapters, read this book, and realize that disbelief isn't yours alone. And it doesn't mean you don't believe in God, but it's so hard to think about these things. You think you have to fix everything. We think we have to do it. We have to carry it. We're alone. We're not. Whew. Okay. Pulled myself back together here and I grabbed some tea. Now we switch to Hagar. And we go backwards to Genesis 16:2. And Sarah said to Abram, or Sarai, behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go in to my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. Remember, like it or not, Hagar was an enslaved person, an Egyptian. She wasn't viewed equal with Sarah or any other woman of her stature. It's an unfortunate reality, but that's the life of enslaved people, as it were, right? It may be that I obtain children by her. So she's basically saying that any child Hagar has, well, I can use that instead of believing, right? Okay. So Abram listens, and he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, then it turns a little bit, and you see this in Genesis 16:4, and she starts to look down on Sarah. And the author makes the point several times that fertility is a huge issue in the Old Testament with these women. And then Sarah dealt harshly with her, and Hagar leaves. Okay, Genesis 16:6. And yet, this is the amazing part too. Who does God's angel appear to? Hagar. Hagar, the servant woman, because God doesn't see us the way the world sees us. He sees each of us, right? And here we have in Genesis 16:7, the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur. The angel of the Lord also said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring, so they cannot be numbered for multitude. Right? And here we have, this is the promise of God. So he, again, is creating a covenant with another woman. Not just Abraham. He has a covenant with Sarah, and he has one with Hagar. Genesis 16:11. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are pregnant and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. God heard and saw her. And that's a point the author makes extensively in this study. He sees us and he hears us. Light bulb moment, right? So now in the first video of this, I added this section in back here, and then I added more. And I don't know, I really understood how much of Sarah and Abraham's response and reactions were fully human in disbelief and fear, because we think they're the matriarch, the patriarch, and to think of them as human, and yet it's there. It's there for us to read, see, and understand. And I asked myself, why do I hold myself to such a high standard vis-a-vis anxiety, anticipatory grief, anxiety, and fear? How much of myself do I see in Sarah's reactions? Listening, unseen, waiting, anticipating, disbelief, skepticism. Are you in there too, my friends? Because it's, again, when I say disbelief, I certainly don't mean disbelief in God. It's just, again, I always think I have to anticipate, I have to solve. It's just this anticipatory anxiety and fear. not fully realizing God's role and promises for all our lives. She even denies to God her doubt. She was caught and embarrassed. God's response, he chides her and he goes about fulfilling his promise. Well, what an amazing lesson. Sarah again laughs, but with joy over her son. His name Isaac reflects her laughter, doubts, and that the covenant God made with Abraham, he also made with her. God's promise to both were faithful, and Isaac became the second patriarch of Israel, father of Jacob and Esau. And Sarah is human. She takes Ishmael's laughter as mocking, and she asks Abraham to remove Hagar, which he does, which brings me to Hagar. Incidentally, this is how I'm decorating it this time. I don't know if I'll do the same thing next time, just names, markers, and stickers, and it's been really fun to do it that way. So let's talk about Hagar. She's Egyptian. She has no say in Sarai, Sarah's plan of putting Abraham and she together. Once she conceives, she begins to look down on Sarah. Sarah isn't kind to her, quite the opposite, and Abraham lets her do her will, meaning Sarah do her will. Imagine how Hagar felt: pregnant, powerless, frightened. She thought that by carrying Abraham's child, she had improved her life. She had improved her status, surely. Well, when she's treated poorly, she flees, and as I said earlier, the angel appears. And the author makes this really good point, and I hope you don't mind me reading. Well, I'll paraphrase it, but basically, this is where we first see the angel of the Lord in the Bible to a servant woman. He wanted her to know he saw her pain. He saw her discomfort. He saw her distress and her anxiety. And God sees it and sends the angel to calm her, meaning God sees all of us. Who we are in our world isn't equal to as how God sees us. The world tells us one thing, but guess what? It's wrong, as usual. God also sends her back, yet now she knows God's with her. She's the first one in the Bible to give God a name. You are the God who sees me. I have the Genesis 16:13, and she said, the one who appeared to her was, I can't pronounce it, El Roi, meaning the God of seeing. By appearing to her, God's presence made returning to Sarah possible, and he tells Abraham both sons will go forth and become nation builders. Isaac is one of the patriarchs in Judaism, and Ishmael becomes the forefather of Arabs. And she is again sent out later on by Sarah because she thinks the child's laughing or mocking. And again, the angel and God say, do not fear. Okay. The author then asks, would the story be different if the women, instead of being an opposite, had joined together? And again, they're human. And their story of how God sees all of us and has plans for each of us, even when it seems improbable, is now with me. And that is my study that I did for the month already, and I'm so excited by it. This is why I had to finish it. This is why I got caught up in reading it. So I hope that if you too suffer from anxiety or distress, that these passages and this analysis resonates with you as it did with me. As always, I am here with the hope of inspiring your creativity as well as your faith life. And we are off in February to read about Rachel and Leah. So I'm very excited to get into that as well. Thank you again for being here. Have a blessed week. And remember, we don't have to fix it all. We don't have to be awash in anxiety. And this, for me, is very freeing. Have a blessed week, my faith and planner friends. Bye now.